Hello, it's Justin McDonald, and you are watching or listening to Results Radio, or it might be called Real Results, with the real spell REEL. I know, isn't that clever? So if any of you that are watching or listening right now like one over the other, just let me know. I'm not gonna keep plugging stuff away on like my own where to follow me and stuff, but if you do like this video or you know somebody that could benefit from it, just thumbs up it or tag your friends in it, or somebody that you know it's like an entrepreneur or somebody that has a business or likes like learning about business and how it works. um, Everybody I know thinks their business is different, but when it comes to like how principles and laws of economics go, I mean, certain there are just like certain ways things work, just like gravity and math. And when you talk about physics and math too, like that's like where economics comes in too. All the way back to, there's a great book you can read sometime that has to do with economics and investing, and this dates before time. Like it's called uh, "The Richest Man in Babylon." I'm sure most of you that are watching this right now have heard of that book, but that is a really good book. And one thing that I got out of that too, which is timeless, is basically paying yourself first. And for me, like, I don't know about you, if you're a content creator or entrepreneur, you definitely want to pay yourself first with time. Um, and what I mean by that too is like, like the first hour of the day, make that belong to you. If you could do longer than an hour, 2 hours, great. But we all have other duties and jobs and other things we need to focus on, families and friends, and you know you name it, just a million things that keep us busy. So you might see a lot of people these days, it's like they have an excuse for everything. Even me, I spent my time for like 30 something years making excuses too. I've been there. But um you don't get very far in life by just saying, well, this situation, this that whatever. It's like all those situations are situational. Like all those temporary adversities and problems and all that, those are all just stepping stones. And a lot of us don't see it that way. A lot of people don't see it. A lot of people that aren't like us don't see it that way, especially. Um, they're probably, some people are already just getting a handout and they're still complaining. Um, or or they think that because they get something for free or because they hit the lottery, it means they're wealthy or rich. And that brings us to today's quote. And before I go into today's quote, do you know who this man is? This sharp dressed man? That's right. That's Napoleon Hill. And you're going to see me from time to time quote him a lot. And a lot of his ideologies, philosophies. I mean, the guy pretty much um, documented, you could say, wrote or created or invented even sometimes. Or I would say maybe even more of a journalist, like just documented these actual laws, like these actual. It's more than just principles and theories. It's like in the air. It's like sometimes I wonder, like, are we born entrepreneurs or are we made into entrepreneurs? And while we're talking about the subject of Napoleon Hill, I'm gonna grab another prop. if I can get it off my wall. There it is. This is a secret ladder too. And I'm not going to give it all away. But this is a ladder that I printed out that was it's basically the ladder of success. It's called the Magic Ladder of Success. It was actually written before Napoleon Hill came out with Think and Grow Rich and his, I think it's 13 laws of success, but there's 16 on here. And you go up through the ring, you go up through the ladder. It's like your definite aim, the self-confidence you have, having initiative, imagination, taking action, enthusiasm, self-control, over-delivering, attractive personality, accurate thought, concentration, persistency, failures, tolerance and sympathy, work. And the top one right here is the golden rule. And there's actually, if you go through all these, like this is how a lot of people got successful and got super rich. I mean, this isn't like just some random drawing. Like this is an actual framework that people have followed. And here's what can go wrong. Sometimes you could just skip a step or miss one and it totally changes the whole entire message. I mean, somebody as evil as Hitler he did like all of these, right? But then skipped obviously the golden rule. Let's see, tolerance and sympathy. There's an accurate thinking one too, accurate thought. So if you just take out 3 of these magical rings of this ladder, you basically have a Hitler or like a Jeffrey Dahmer or something like that. Do you see how dangerous it is to have this information sometimes? I mean, that's why it's kind of hiding in plain sight, but it's actually kind of a cult too in a little bit in a way. But like I'm really into this too because if you actually follow all of these steps, and he's got them broken down into books, and there's a law of success, some of it's public domain. Definitely look into Napoleon Hill, but top Fortune 500 companies, a lot of success coaches and billionaires throughout history, going back almost 100 years, have followed a similar ladder. But again, like if you are into something like that, you got to realize the importance of every ring and you got to follow the steps. Because again, if you miss one, you have a very dangerous situation on your hands. So that's why I don't like tread lightly on this kind of stuff either. Like if I follow the magical ladder to success, I am following every one of these steps. You know what I mean? Every single one of them. And what's so crazy is that this stuff, what Napoleon Hill says, I'll get to the quote in a second, is more relevant actually, is way more relevant now than it ever was. Like ever. And you would think 100-year-old philosophies, we'll say 90-year-old philosophies, like literally like 100-year-old philosophies are like more relevant today. Like not just like kind of relevant, but more relevant. Like it's even more important to like follow all this than it ever has been before. Especially like with like AI and all these future technologies and all these like there's just like so many of things that have happened in the past couple of years, and there's so many things that are about to happen and like that are happening that like going back to these basic principles is really like essential right now. But the problem is too, especially people my age and especially people younger, no offense to the younger generation, but they don't want to follow all these steps. They just want to be like, here's my aim, let's just practice the golden rule. Let's not worry about the other 13, 14, whatever in between, right? Let's not have the self-confidence or the initiative, the imagination, the action. You know what I mean? It's this action part and this work part that definitely gets skipped today. And even more than any of them, I don't want to write on this, is number 10. It's the accurate thought. So many of us could be getting all 15 of these perfectly right, but without accurate thought, that's when you can go into the deep end. I mean, think about some of those billionaires that are in jail right now. They skipped one of these rings. You know that, right? That's why. It's like they had them all down. Oh, they had the enthusiasm, the over delivered, self control, maybe not totally, but all these things, imagination, failure, and maybe it's not in complete order. But if you don't like have all of those in like baked into it, something's bound. This ladder's about bound to fall down. Somewhere, the guy, the lady, or whoever's climbing this ladder and skipping rings is going to end up falling. You know what I mean? So let's get to business here. So Napoleon Hill said there is a principle known as the law of economics. It's a law, by the way. This is more than a theory. It is a law no man can beat. There is a principle known as the law of economics. This is more than a theory. It is a law no man can beat. Or woman, right? And because it's in the air. It exists, like I was saying at the beginning, just like math does or physics. The like want and need and the ability and what comes from trade is always and has always been essential, even before the monetary system, even when we were just bartering and trading, which we are kind of going back to a little bit as the value of the dollar is up in the air and people are getting into cryptocurrencies. At the same time too, there is a growing number of people in a movement to try to get back to basics too and use some of the barter system. And if you do have a barter system within your business, or not even within your business, but just for your own personal gain, I would definitely exploit that as much as you can. Sometimes you could, whatever it is that you sell or offer, somebody else might need that also has services, and you can sometimes swap. I mean, it doesn't always work out that way, but if you're a landscaper and somebody else has a restaurant, I mean, could be a match made in heaven, right? Because it's like they don't have time to mow the lawn and they ain't got time to cook. Hey, I'll do your landscaping and hook me up with some meals. I mean, tell me about a match made in heaven. That's why barter systems are awesome. Like back hundreds of years ago, I think a lot of people would have farms and they would have certain crops and they would, they're like, I can't eat corn all the time. I could go for some potatoes today. Or, I mean? I need some milk. They got cows over there, trade their potatoes for some milk. You know what I mean? So that's, and some level, like we are starting to return to that a little bit because again, like money is just like this certificate. We don't know how much it's worth anymore, really. And but we do know the value of like good nutrition and food, and even things like coaching and teaching and consulting. Like those are real businesses and real services too. Like you might be able to get away with that sometime too, like helping somebody else, like consulting somebody else, and then in exchange they might offer what it is that they have for free or something. I don't know. But I know I think that this quote could have been from Think and Grow Rich, but it could have been from one of his other books or somewhere else where I've read something from Napoleon Hill. He's got stuff all over the place. He's even got the Golden Rule magazine, which if anybody can find that, it's like kind of like a newsletter. It's literally like 100 years old. It was probably one of the very first like success like business kind of like newsletter magazines. At least from what I know, which I don't know a lot, right? And it circulated for a little bit, like literally 100 years ago. We're talking like 1919, 1920, and maybe in the 1920s. But it's just a paper, kind of like a newsletter. And it's called The Golden Rule. You could probably Google it and find what I'm talking about. But talk about somebody who was like, that knew like what was up when it comes to business. Now, I know there's people today that will say that, his stuff is exaggerated and this and that, and blah blah blah, but he's got some very actionable plans. And also too, like if you look at Think and Grow Rich in a sales letter perspective, like that whole entire book is like a book commercial or like a sales letter. Just I was talking about this before about a sales letter being as short as maybe even a few words to it could be a whole book like Think and Grow Rich. Um, and I also noted down too, going back to this quote, is that there is no system created by which people can legally acquire riches through mere force or numbers, or without giving in return an equivalent value of one form or another. So we were just saying the bartering system, and I said at the beginning too, like if you're, I'm sorry, it sucks when you're in that position, but if you're getting, benefits in some form, maybe from the government or whatever, God bless you. And that is a tough place to be in. Um, and also if you're on the other side of that and you hit the lottery, right? If you hit the lottery or if you go to a casino and win a bunch of money, that's not like real sustainable income. That doesn't really, in my eyes, make you wealthy. You gambled and you got lucky. Um, is business a gamble? Yeah, it might be. But like it's not part of this philosophy. Like that is the illusion that people get caught up with is that I don't have to do anything for money. It's not the case that like, oh, I could just go and gamble or I could just beg or I could just the government will give me benefits. You know what? I don't want to have that conversation and go down that road, but I'll tell you what one thing is we live in America and in most states, at least the state I'm in, the government will always be there for you. Unless I don't know, like even if you're a criminal and go to jail, you're probably going to be taken care of very well. So if you want to talk about baseline, if you want to talk about baseline for a moment, the government will always be there for you. So like, but is that how you want to live your life though? Like, just being baseline all the time, like you're like not really understanding the value of a dollar. This is why the value of a dollar gets misconstrued by people, and they have an illusion of what money is, their relationship with it, because of how they get it, how they spend it. Somebody could save it or not save it. It's not even consequential to them because they're going to get a guaranteed supplement, right, to keep them alive. And I don't think that there's anything, well, I'm not saying that there's nothing wrong with that, but I don't stand against that at all. I'm saying I don't have anything against it. I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with it. Like, is it nothing? Because there's tons of holes in every system right now. We don't need to go down that road, but I do feel like personally, I'm gonna just kind of stay on my soapbox here for a moment, that it is kind of, I feel like for anything having to do with politics, I feel like it is the politician's job. I feel like it is the government's job to at least take care of the baseline stuff. And that's like feeding the needy, helping the elderly, helping the handicapped, helping the people that just are physically or mentally, like literally, like they can't, I guess, do regular societal work or whatever. Because nobody has an excuse. Like, we are all born with like very limited resources and with nothing basically. Like, have we and can we all go through crappy times and become stricken with poverty and just scraping by. Or I heard somebody the other day talking about prospecting and being um, in that zone, being stuck, like prospecting, like waiting for clients and stuff like that. There's all, and like musicians and artists of all types go through that all the time too. And of course, those are the artists in general that are going to surpass all this AI technology and everything too, because when you have a voice like that and you're charismatic and you have, charisma, and like confident, like people are going to be able to see through all this muck that like you're going to be seeing in the next few weeks, months, and years with way technology is. So going back to basics here, we gotta go back to this quote on there being this law of economics, and that there's also like this, like that's why I was trying to break down that barrier. There's also an illusion of like how we think about wealth. And I know Dan Kennedy specifically has tons and tons of books and literature and mastermind groups and all these other things he's done over the past like 30 to 50 years, talking about this stuff too. So before I go off to another tangent here, I kind of just like jotted down a few things when I was just like absorbing and meditating on this quote for a little while. And what Napoleon Hill said, I know I just messed up the lighting, but whatever. Napoleon Hill said something about this law of economics too, being that I think he was saying something about knowledge and action and persistence, and how like that was the force that's going to get somebody to succeed in business and become rich. And I wanted to even break that down to even simpler terms, because when he said knowledge and action, like if you literally take knowledge, right? Take knowledge and add that with some action. What do you have? Exactly. Wisdom. So, what people misconstrue a lot of times, and I know some of you writers out there, copywriters out there, entrepreneurs will back me up on this one, but people will say sometimes that like thinking and just like being intelligent and being and thinking like aren't like actions, when they absolutely are. So like being a thinker, being a creator, and like actually thinking is actually wisdom. Like, because our brains are really just used to move muscle. And like that's like our brain is a muscle too. And that's why it's something that you don't maybe see a lot of is wisdom. Maybe you just see a lot of information or just people spewing out a lot of knowledge. But what a lesson from Napoleon Hill himself too, is that he might have gotten caught up in times in his own life where he was preaching and studying this stuff so much that it was making him incapacitated a little bit to actually take some action and become rich. Like he was spending so much time teaching other people how to be rich that he was suffering himself financially, and somebody else came along and helped him out. It's another story. But just remember that taking knowledge and putting action behind it is where you get wisdom. And then when you put persistence behind that, then you're an unstoppable force. And especially today with where we're at, like I was just saying with technology, it's having that wisdom and bundling it with persistence is really what it's all about, and not giving up so easily. So as we move forward with technology, as we move forward in time, one thing that really stuck out too is is like is seeing so many things that we've already seen before, and common platitudes, and everything's kind of already been said and invented. And I don't know about that, but either way, I think that a better way to, like a better mindset to have, if you were to study these laws of economics, is you want to have the ability to adapt, and you want to have the ability to innovate. So just remember those two things as you move forward, is adapting and innovating. So instead of inventing, innovating. Take something that's already invented, and add value to it. Add value to it. Adding value to things is really what's going to stand you apart in a crowd full of people if they're all doing the same thing. Crowd full of businesses. Whoever's adding the most amount of value is probably going to win the most amount of money. So that's all I have for today. And for your homework, if you're whoever's watching or listening, when you do deep dives on successful entrepreneurs and stuff like that, check out some of Napoleon Hill's stuff, because there's probably a nugget or two in there that you can mine that will help you on your journey as an entrepreneur. So again, if you found anything in this to be cool, or somebody that you know would find value in it, tag them or hit the like. That's all I ask. Thank you very much. Have a lovely day. Peace.